Do you love catching the latest blockbusters, but you're looking to save some cash? Well, Regal Cinemas has you covered. Introducing the Regal Crown Club, a totally free loyalty program designed to give you more bang for your buck every time you visit the theater. As a Regal Crown Club member, you can rack up points and redeem them for awesome perks such as concession upgrades, movie tickets, and exclusive prizes. Plus, points can be used to shop for merch, score free downloads, and enter sweepstakes in the Regal Rewards Center. But the deals don't stop there. On Mondays, get 25% off all candy, and on Tuesdays, enjoy 50% off popcorn along with discounted movie tickets, as low as $5 with Regal Value Days. Oh, and did I mention they give you a free popcorn every year on your birthday just for being a member? How cool is that? Crown Club also tracks every time you buy a ticket, and after just 6 visits, you'll earn free bonus extra credits. So why wait? Download the Regal app today and get started with your free Crown Club membership. Regal Crown Club, your ticket to unbeatable movie deals.
With Amex Gold, you can experience the gold standard. You get access to exceptional dining, plus 4 times membership rewards points on eligible dining purchases. That's the powerful backing of American Express. Terms apply. Cap applies. Learn more at americanexpress.com/withAmex.
It's Throwback Thursday.
Hey everybody, Chris Makes a Podcast producer Chris Fafalius here. It's Throwback Thursday again, and this week we're throwing it all the way back to November 1st, 2021, when Christian Jacobs, aka MC Bat Commander of the Aquabats, sat in to discuss the writing and recording of the band's fan favorite 1997 single, Super Rad. This episode is a lot of fun, and Christian has a super interesting career backstory. So whether you're hearing this for the first time or listening again, I really hope you enjoy it. Here you go.
Hey superheroes, we have a super rad episode for you today. Christian Jacobs, also known as MC Bat Commander, lead vocalist for the Huntington Beach, California ska band The Aquabats, is here to break down their 1997 classic, Super Rad, taken from the album The Fury of the Aquabats. In fitting in with the band's wacky theme, at first glance the lyrics look to be a stream of consciousness, silly ramble, but I was pleased to know that there is a great story behind the song. Christian shares some great insight into the ska scene from the early to mid-90s in Southern California, and how the idea for the band was born out of complete ridiculousness that has not only lasted almost 30 years at this point, but has spawned TV shows featuring the band, which led to Christian creating the highly successful children's show, Yo Gabba Gabba. This band is all about fun. They've never tried to be anything more than a group of superheroes playing upbeat ska music and trying to save the world, one city at a time. I back it. Oh, and who knew that Christian was a child actor that was in a bunch of movies and TV shows I grew up watching as a kid? Or that the actor, Bobcat Goldthwait, directed the video for Super Rad? Well, prior to this episode, I sure didn't. For all this and a whole lot more, don't touch that dial. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. I'm talking to Clark Kent today. MC Bat Commander's not here. I got Clark Kent. I got Christian.
Yeah, let me grab him real quick. Hey, what's up, Chris? He's right around the corner every second of the day.
the uniform and the Sharpie for the tooth and the mustache is in the closet right now. So
yeah.
How's it going, my friend?
Good, man. Good. You know, just living through these weird times as we all are. It's a whole new ball of wax that we're melting all over ourselves. So we played at the Orange County Fair 2 nights ago, and in front of like a full crowd, and it was cool, man. It was cool to play live again, and I just really didn't even know if that was ever going to happen again. So it was cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Did the suit still fit?
You know, it didn't, but I gave myself a couple weeks to get to. Yeah, I've been on the Christian Bale diet, which is like I just don't eat. So
yeah, well, the reason I asked that, I've been trying to slim down myself. I got a run coming up, and yeah, it's easy to get complacent and lazy when you're not on the road. You know, Christian, I got to say, when researching for this episode, I've certainly known a lot about the Aquabats over the years. Done shows with you, know a lot about your band, but I had no idea that you were a child actor. You're probably like, what, are you living under a rock? But I am like starstruck right now, dude, because, you know, for those that don't know, there was a show in the 70s called All in the Family that featured Carol O'Connor as Archie Bunker and Sally Struthers as Gloria Bunker, his daughter.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget Rob Reiner. Of course, he was Meathead on the show, right? And Rob Reiner went on to direct and, you know, created Spinal Tap with all of our favorite buddies. So like that was huge too. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I can't believe I left out Rob Reiner. Of course, he was a huge part of that show. And then you had Jean Stapleton, who played Edith Bunker. She was in a league of her own as well. Wonderful show that did a spinoff called Gloria from 82 to 83. And that's when Sally Struthers struck out on her own. And the little boy in her son was named Joey Stivic. And Christian played him. And I was like, there's no way. And here I am Googling images, and I push you back about 40 years. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is him. That's unreal, man.
Hi, Mom, what's up? Look outside, Joe. That's what's up. I can't see anything but this old wreck of a car. That's right. Wow, you did it! You bought me a car! It's our car. Will you give me a ride to school? I'm sorry, Joey. I have to go to work.
Go ahead, blow it out.
That is so cool.
It was crazy, you know, but I was young and I needed the money, you know, so that's what they say. No, my parents, we moved to LA when I was about 3 or 4 years old. I think I was about 4 years old, and with kind of the express purpose of putting their kids into show business, which, you know, I guess thousands, if not millions of people do that. And we were just kind of fortunate enough to be like a working kind of family in the business, but we were never like, you know, broke out as like, you know, Ricky Schroeder or Jason Bateman or, you know, Alfonso, or, you know, we were never like the big household name kids, but we were always, you know, my sister did, she was a reoccurring part on Growing Pains. And, you know, my younger brother, Parker, also was an actor. We did commercials and TV shows. I was on the Love Boat.
Well, I know I got it right here. You starred in Pretty in Pink. You were in Gleaming the Cube, which is crazy.
Yeah.
You also did cameos on Married with Children and Roseanne. I mean, that's I'm like I said, I'm starstruck, and I think that's so cool.
Yeah, it was cool for sure. And as a kid, you know, being around a lot of adults, and I'm sure a lot of those adults were you know, taking some interesting drugs at the time, because you know, it was like late 70s, early 80s, and just being around all that, you kind of get a good insight into how things are done. And so even just like as a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid, I kind of had a good, you know, inner working of how to make stuff or productions, you know, how to do production. But, you know, the show business was weird. And like, I guess I was lucky that I had parents that were they weren't helicopter parents, but they were looking out, you know, because there was other kids that got into like the party scene at a young age, and, you know, like the Coreys and the River Phoenix and
Dana Plato. It's horrible.
Yeah. You know, Todd Bridges, like a lot of those kids, when you're around adults all the time that are partying pretty hard, and then they're like, hey, come to a party, you know, you're like a 12, 13-year-old kid, and there's cocaine and, you know, eventually crack, and like all that stuff came in kind of hardcore in the 80s. And so I guess I was lucky to kind of escape all of that stuff, that baggage that comes with that. But there was definitely some really cool times and interesting experiences, and met a ton of crazy people, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
It kind of makes sense now, especially when I was reading through all this. I'm like, man, you know, you've went into television production. You've you know, done the Aquabats TV show, Yo Gabba Gabba, which we'll get to in a moment. But it's just it makes sense that you come from that lineage. And I think it's really, really neat.
Thanks, man. I mean, again, like, I don't know. I kind of got disillusioned with it a little bit, because I felt like at some point I just wanted to be a kid, because being a kid actor, you're always out there and you're always going on auditions. And sometimes I, you know, get picked up from school and I'd go like on 4 or 5 auditions every day. And if you know, lived in LA or been in LA traffic, just driving in traffic every day, all day long, it got old. So as I got into skateboarding and music and punk rock, to help us transition into where we're going, I just got really bummed on going on auditions and trying out for stuff. And interestingly, as you know, like when you kind of have an attitude about things, people like respond to it, which is so dumb. But like you're at your job and someone's such a total jerk and like, why? How is that guy the boss? He's so lame. Everyone hates that person. And like they just keep getting more and more jobs. And it seemed like when I was a nice kid and I wanted to get parts, like I tried out for a ton of stuff. Like I tried out for E.T., I tried out for Poltergeist, Stand By Me, like anything you could think of in the 80s that had kids in it, I tried out for sure. And as it got kind of later in the 80s, more towards the 90s, and I just wanted to skate and go to punk shows and I didn't care. It was like suddenly I started getting all these roles, like people just wanted, can you stay and meet the director? And I'm like, no, I got stuff to do. I got to go skate this curb down the street. You know what I mean? And and then I get a call from my agent, like later on in the evening. They're like, they love you. They want you. They gave you the part, so it was weird. And that made me kind of not like it even more. Like, this is so disingenuous because, like, punk, you have this ethos and it's like, don't sell out or, I'm not that kind of a person, or which is just funny. It's just like a young kid. And now I look back at it, I was like, man, I should have taken a bunch of those jobs, but
which is the complete antithesis to what you're talking about. And
yeah, totally. I mean, I definitely took work, but I kind of had an attitude towards the end. And again, it resulted in getting jobs, which was funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gleaming the Cube was probably the best thing to kind of transition me away from being a kid actor, because I was about 15 and I got cast to be in the movie, and I got to work with like the Bones Brigade guys and skateboarding, and just got really into like skateboard culture. I was already into it, but getting to know those guys like unlocked a lot of doors, and I got to work with Jason Lee and Mark Gonzalez and Tony Hawk a bunch, and we hung out all the time. And it kind of made me just get real disillusioned with like the Hollywood thing, and I just wanted to skateboard. I just wanted to be a skater.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a dream. That was a dream role. It was so fun. Like it was like 8 to 10 weeks of just every day hanging out with those dudes and skating. And we didn't even like, they would just have us show up on the set. They wouldn't even have a scene for us to be in. They just wanted us to be around. And we were like, okay. So we would just skate like 12 hours a day. And it was super fun. And we got paid, and it ruined my school career because I didn't, I got terrible grades after that. And I didn't want to do anything but ride my skateboard after that and go to shows. So anyway.
Yeah, well, it sounds like everything worked out for the right reasons. Everything came together, and I think you ultimately made the right decision. But the fact that you have that experience behind you and those memories is really cool. I want to give a little overview to the listeners here, most of whom, my listeners, of course, know who the Aquabats are, but the band formed in 1994 in Huntington Beach, California. The debut album, Return of the Aquabats, was released in 1995, followed by The Fury of the Aquabats in 1997, which we'll be talking about the lead single from that record today, Super Rad.
Yeah.
Current Blink-182 drummer Travis Barker played on the track, as well as being in the band from 1996 to 1998. And the video for Super Rad was directed by Bobcat Goldthwait, which, again, here I am reading through all this stuff, like, what? Like, how did that transpire? What a nut.
Yeah, that was crazy times. So, a little bit of a correction, and history is always a little bit tweaked. So I moved in 94. I had a friend, and I moved into a house in Brea, which is like north of Anaheim a little bit. It's like 4 exits north of Anaheim. And I moved into this place because I needed a place to stay. And the other roommate was Chad, aka Crash McLarson, the bass player of the Aquabats. And he was in a punk band, and I was in kind of like a shoegazer band with actually the co-creator of Yo Gabba Gabba, Scott Schultz, and I had a band that was kind of more like spiritualized, or Galaxy 500, kind of like a trippy, like turn up the distortion and like weird noise, like pop band. And kind of like to go back to the beginning of the Aquabats, when I met Chad and we started going to punk shows together and got to be friends, the ska scene was starting to really blow up in Orange County, and it was already kind of big with No Doubt. They were like the elder statesmen of the scene, I guess. And so their shows were always huge, and Sublime was huge in Orange County. And this is, of course, before any of those bands like broke really big.
Yeah.
But there was a cool little burgeoning scene there with like Real Big Fish and a band called Meal Ticket. And there was like a cool scene that would play at these like tiny places, or like a pizza place, and we started going to those shows too, because just something to do. And it was like, we should just start a ska band, even though we were in totally different, like he was in a hardcore punk band that would play with like HFL and like the Whitecaps and all these like, the type of shows that were going on at that time were real violent. Like the punk shows were real violent. And then anyway, that was kind of where we came up with an idea, like, let's just mash our bands together and make just kind of like a joke ska band. And that's really where the Aquabats came out of it. So technically it started kind of more in Brea, but then just after that, Chad and we moved in to Huntington Beach to be a little closer to the beach. And so that's where, anyway.
I really want to know how you came in contact with Bobcat Goldthwait. That's unreal.
Bobcat came about because at the time, our manager, Bill Fold and Bill Hardy, they were the Bills, and we always had to pay the bills. Wah, wah, wah.
Was his real last name Fold?
No, his real last name is not Fold,
Okay.
but that's his like.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay,
that's his business name, Bill Fold.
That's a great manager name.
Yeah,
I love it.
And he still works for Golden Voice. He's like a number 2 guy at Coachella. Like, he's a rad guy. And so Bill Fold and Bill Hardy, they were friends with Bobcat. Bill Hardy, particularly, who did the Hootenanny Festival. Maybe you know Bill Hardy. You probably met him before, but he's like a almost 7 foot tall, bleach blonde haired manager with always smoking cigars. Anyway, his idol was Colonel Tom Parker, which was like a red flag early on. It's like,
Yeah.
Wait, your idol is the guy that took 50% of Elvis's money, And he was like, yeah, that guy was awesome. He took 50% of Elvis's money. And I was like, maybe I don't want you as my manager. But he was good. It was great.
But it's crazy because I've never heard of Bobcat Goldthwait directing any other band's videos, to my knowledge.
Right. So Bobcat and him were friends, and he introduced us to Bobcat. And Bobcat had directed, Shakes the Clown and done some other things. And we kind of threw it out there like, well, do you think Bobcat would want to direct our video? And so we talked to Bobcat about it. And then he was great. And he brought in like his crew. And I think Ed Begley Jr. has a tiny cameo in the video. Anyway, the premise of the video is pretty wacky, but Ed Begley Jr., he called Ed Begley Jr. and said, Bobcat did, he said, hey, we're shooting this video today. Could you come make an appearance? And Ed was like, okay, well, I'm kind of busy. He's like, well, we're over by Dodger Stadium. Just come by for like 10 minutes. He's like, okay, 10 minutes. Bobcat got the camera ready, and Ed Begley Jr. pulls up in his Prius, which at the time was like high tech. It was like no one had a Prius in 1997, and it was like, whoa, he's in a Prius. And he pulls up and he's like, okay, roll the cameras. And he just rolled through and waved. And then that was it. And he drove away. Anyway, that was a funny story. But yeah, Bobcat was rad. And he helped us do a pilot for Disney a little later. But amazing to go hang out with Bobcat Goldthwait at his house in Hollywood Hills. And, people would stop by like Daryl Hannah and Eric Idle from Monty Python. Like we played a party for Bobcat's daughter and in their garage just because we were friends, and all these like super funny comedians, Adam Sandler and Eric Idle was the one we were tripping on the most because Monty Python, and they were super cool and like, yeah, your guys are hilarious, and we were just like stupid dudes from the beach, so at least we felt that way. So it was kind of cool to be in that scene. But Bobcat was he was a good job.
Well, the video is super fun. And just to give a little bit more of an overview before we get into the song here, A few short live-action television series were developed, the first being the Aquabats in 1998, followed by the Aquabats in color. In 2007, Christian and longtime Aquabats collaborator Scott Schultz, which you mentioned a moment ago, successfully sold one of their pilots, a preschooler show called Yo Gabba Gabba, to Viacom's Nick Jr. channel. The show was an award-winning international sensation, and it led to Gabba's production company, Wild Brain, to help produce a new pilot based, again, on the band. In 2008, the Aquabats filmed their third TV pilot titled The Aquabats Super Show, which had consistently high ratings, eventually earning a Daytime Emmy. To this day, the band continues to produce new episodes of The Aquabats Super Show. In total, the band has released 6 full-length albums, the most recent being 2020's Kooky Spooky in stereo. So you guys just never stopped. One project led to another, and how the band tied into the TV show, it's just genius. And that's something I always loved about the Aquabat. If you're going to have a gimmick and own it, like you guys have owned it, because I know you can relate to this. A lot of the ska that was happening, especially when the major labels were swooping up any band in the late 90s, it was just like this goofy, harebrained ska. There was no substance to the lyrics. It was just, we're singing about balloons and clowns and whatever.
Right. Well, yeah, we're guilty of that for sure.
No. But you guys owned it from the start. That was your gimmick. That was always the impetus behind it,
Well, yeah. And for you guys too, like Less Than Jake, obviously I heard Pezcore, right? That's the first record.
The first record, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I heard that before we even were a band, and you guys were the same. You didn't change. You were doing what you were doing. And when we started, we knew we were a joke from the beginning, but we weren't ever trying to be anything different than that. We were trying to create our own thing out of ska. And I think not that we were being opportunistic, because I don't think we saw it coming that ska was ever going to get scooped out of the fishbowl and put onto the stage, at the time we started, Pezcore was out, and, it was just little shows, maybe if 100 people were there, that was a big show. And so maybe 50 to 100 people, but it was growing.
I remember playing with Homegrown, a Chain Reaction, to 40 people.
Yeah, Homegrown, like all those bands. And it was, I believe it was Tragic Kingdom when No Doubt's record broke. And also there was Sublime with their, Date Rape song got pretty big around the same time. Then it was all the labels were looking for ska bands. And I remember bands like that band Schlep Rock, and there were some other bands that would they swapped their punk for Suspenders and Doc Martens and Scooters, and suddenly they were a ska band. And there might even be some more popular bands which I could out as being you were not even ska at all, and now you're totally ska. And
there was a moment there when all that was going on.
Yeah, I don't want to have any enemies, but it was kind of weird to us because we were okay, now this is weird. Is it weird for us that we're just going to be a joke, but there's a lot of jokes going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I never took it as a joke, though. I always kind of envied you guys in the sense that, if anything I could change going back, I wouldn't change anything. But looking back, if we were a little more PG-13, I mean, you guys could play to anybody, I mean, we weren't getting the family festival down the road a lot of times because of our our punk mouths.
Well, and that was a big thing for us from the beginning. We wanted to play all ages, X on the Hand for sure. And we kept the content really friendly. And that goes back to me, my first real show. As a kid, I was in 6th grade and I saw Oingo Boingo at the Palace in LA. And it was family friendly. They're theatrical. Their songs are pretty theatrical, but it was it was open to anyone. It was very PG. And after the show, I got introduced to Danny Elfman, and I just thought that was cool. The 6th grade kid is at the show where there was no other real kids at the show, and I got to meet the band. And so when we started the band, I was fiercely protective of all ages. Let's make sure the youngest and the oldest people could come, because right in the middle, it's rated R, rated X, whatever. But the old people, they don't like to hear that stuff, and the little kids don't need that. So we were just trying to keep it all ages. So that's cool. And just thanks for saying that, because that was something we tried to do. And sometimes we would get a little heat for being a little cheesy, But again, we were owning it. Like, we don't care. Like,
if it's cheesy for the sake of being cheesy, you guys owned it. And again, I never just thought of you as a ska band. You mentioned Boingo a couple times. You guys had Oingo Boingo. I heard Devo. I heard new wave influences. I certainly heard the ska, but you guys took it all, and then you had this whole spacey where superheroes feel behind it, and it was like a sci-fi amalgamation of all these things. And I'll say it for the last time, you guys owned it right on your sleeve. You were who you were, and that's respected. Before we jump in, I want to ask, the only other record that I know by a guy with this name, and I tried to research him, if it's the same guy, he produced the self-titled Face to Face record, Jim Goodwin.
Oh yeah,
is that the same guy?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's the same guy.
He produced this record, The Fury of the Aquabats, and this song, Super Rad.
I've heard rumors that he passed away, and I've heard rumors that he moved out of the business and he just disappeared. And I actually tried to get a hold of him a few times, but he was a local producer. He did Face to Face, and he did some stuff for like Dr. Dream Records and like Inland Empire bands. I'm not sure if he did a Voodoo Glow Skulls record or not. Like, but he was kind of like, at the time we weren't like a Butch Vig band. We weren't like a huge band.
Yeah.
Rob Cavallo, or like, we got who we could get. And we did meet with a couple producers to do the record. We met with the guy that produced Beck's song Loser. He was a little bit spaced out and it didn't feel right. And so we just went with Jim Goodwin, and because he seemed cool and he'd done some cool records, and that Face to Face song, their big song, he produced that. And so we were like, yeah, sure, why not? And for what it's worth, we didn't really know what a music producer did. We were like, well, yeah, he'll just record us and it'll sound good and great,
Yeah, especially at that time. And now this was, of course, before Pro Tools. You guys were recording to tape, correct?
Yeah, yep. Which was pretty awesome back in the day, when Travis was in our band. And Travis was in the band for a while, a couple years. But whenever we recorded with Travis, he always was so prepared, and it would blow people away because he would just do like maybe two takes. Like a lot of times he would just nail it the first take. And the producer, I remember Jim Goodwin like leaning into the mic and going, do you want to do that song again? And sometimes Travis would go, yeah, let me try something else. But like recording a record is a process, and it always starts with the drums. It starts with the drums, and having Travis on that record, man, it got us through it really quick. Like we got in and out of there fast, because I think Travis did the whole record in a day, maybe 2 days.
And that's incredible, because back when you're recording the tape, now they can fix all that stuff. They can line everything up. But when you got a great drummer like him that can just go in and knock it out,
right,
it just makes it so much easier.
And his meter was always it's so solid. Like he wouldn't swim at all. And like that's typical for just a group of kids that get together and you have a drummer. For people that don't know what I'm talking about, when you're swimming, it means that your tempo is going faster and slower and faster and slower. It's not staying straight, and Travis was like a metronome. Like he would go on his tempo. Whatever he clicked off, he would stay on that tempo.
It's why guys like him and Josh Freese are talked about in the same circles. They
right.
continue to get these studio gigs. They're just another level of musicianship. You can't say enough about guys like that.
Yeah, and at the time, Travis's like his Mount Rushmore was Josh Freese, Chad Sexton, and Bill Stevenson. So and from the Descendants. And so if you notice on the record, on Super Rad, and on that record, there's a lot of that popcorn snare that's very indicative of the 90s, like that 311 popcorn snare. We were trying to talk Travis out of it, like, dude, come on, please, just not every song has to be popcorn snare. And he changed it for a couple songs, but there's a very poppy drum snare sound on that record, because at the time, Travis was pretty into Chad Sexton and the whole like that kind of like the popcorn snare sound, it's like such a timepiece, because it didn't really carry on. Like you hear that snare of the 311 and it's like, okay, this is 1995,
Yeah, well, and again, going to tape on this, the groove of this song, where the drums sit and how this song swings, is just, it's undeniable that this was just an amazing drum track. The song is 3 minutes and 2 seconds. There's a 21-second intro. The whole band is in right off the top. The bass groove and the horn lines are killer in this. Chad McLarson, Crash McLarson, your bass player, just the just the feel and the tone of what he's doing in this track is just, it's fun, but man, he's got his own sound. Nothing really sounds like this. I'm hearing tenor, possibly alto sax and trumpet. I don't hear trombones here. Is that correct?
No trombones. Yeah.
Okay.
So we had 2 trumpet players and a tenor sax player, which is weird. Everyone's like, "Why do you have 2 trumpet players?" And I was like, mariachi, man. Come on.
Yeah. And that's something that your sound has. It has a mariachi flavor to it because of the 2 trumpets and possibly your Southern California roots.
Yeah, for sure.
There's like I want to say, is it a farfisa, electric piano, playing upstrokes with the guitar?
Yeah,
is that what that is?
There's a farfisa that was on the keyboards, and actually we had Prince Adam, who played trumpet. He also did a lot of the keyboards on the record. But for this song, and maybe not a lot of people know this, but for this song, we brought Ike Owens, who was in the band Pocket Limp, but Ike went on to be keyboard player for Macy Gray, and he was in what was the band that at the drive-in guys? Mars Volta. He was the keyboard player Mars Volta. I mean, Ike is amazing musician, and he came in and played on a couple of the songs because I think we tried it out amongst the members of the band. It just was sounding like it sounded super white, so
yeah.
Like it just didn't sound like the groove wasn't landing with the keyboards. And so we brought Ike, and he just, man, his rhythm is amazing and just amazing musician.
It's cool, and my old ears didn't fail me. That is a farfisa there.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
It's interesting because as we get into verse 1 here, it's the loudest thing that you hear in the mix besides the vocals. And I think it's just because there was such a swing to it there, from what you're saying.
Yeah. Ike heard the song a couple times, and we talked a little bit about the vibe we were going for, and he just boomed right into it. I mean, all those little things that he's doing is just, he's improvising on the spot. It wasn't like he was a member of the band he practiced with a bunch. It was just like the magic came together on the song. So a little background for the song. You talked about Crash, or Chad, Crash. We were living together in Huntington Beach, and we were writing songs for the record. And I remember specifically the first time he played the song for me, he had an acoustic guitar, and he was like, "Hey, I got another one. Are you ready?" And he starts playing the chords, ching, 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 ching. And then he starts doing the horn like, ba, 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 ba. And he does it twice, just like the song. And, and someone's like going, ba, 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 ba. And like, you're kind of like, okay, that sounds great. But he had a vision for the song. So I got to give all credit where credit is due. And that's to Crash McLarson for this song, because this was his vision for the song musically, and it all came together really well. So he's a great songwriter.
Again, his bass playing is phenomenal, and just the tone and just the choice of notes in the song is killer. And I got to give another nod to Travis, the drum groove at the top here, and then getting into the verses, what he's doing on the hi-hats, the little accents and those little things, and then the off-time cymbal, that just the splash that happens, and where he's putting things and where they lay is phenomenal. Verse 1 starts at 22 seconds.
I got a small friend who has a fat friend who had a big friend who gave birth to many friends with our flashlights to the sky. We waited for them to land. I've got 2 tall friends who know my small friend who seem to have a problem with you. They got Roman candles, bottle rockets for the vandals who cover the lockers in blue.
Here's the lyrics. I got a small friend who has a fat friend who had a big friend who gave birth to many friends. With our flashlights to the sky, we waited for them to land. I got 2 tall friends who know my small friend, who seem to have a problem with you. They got Roman candles, bottle rockets for the vandals, who covered our lockers in glue.
Yeah. There's really deep stuff.
No, but I mean, like, there's a story here.
Hey, everybody, don't you dare go anywhere. There's lots more Krista Makes a Podcast after these messages from our sponsors.
The holiday holiday season officially starts when you get that first card in the mail. Shutterfly makes it easy to add more meaning to the everyday with hundreds of holiday card designs that can be personalized in seconds with your favorite photos from this year. Select your greeting, customize the color, and even add little extras like personalized foil to make a holiday card that really shines. Enjoy 40% off with code SMILE40 at Shutterfly.com and send something meaningful this year. See site for more details.
With Uber Reserve, good things come to those who plan ahead. Family vacay? Reserve your ride as soon as you book your flights. To all the planners, now you can reserve your Uber ride up to 90 days in advance. See Uber app for details.
This is what you do when you've just found that statement handbag on eBay and you want to build an entire wardrobe around it. You start selling to keep buying. Yep, on eBay. Over that all-black everything phase, list it and buy all the color. Feeling more vintage than ever? It's out with the new and in with the pre-loved. Next thing you know, you've refreshed your wardrobe basically without spending a dime. Yeah, eBay, the place to buy and sell new, pre-loved, vintage, and rare fashion.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Each week on the One Hit Thunder podcast, we welcome a special guest to come take a deep dive into a one-hit wonder artist with us. And together, we decide if that artist brought the one-hit thunder or was nothing more than a one-hit blunder. You can find One Hit Thunder anywhere that you listen to podcasts, so hit that subscribe button and join in on the fun each week. And now, back to the show.
Is this just your imagination? Or a lot of times I'll read lyrics like this on the show and they'll be like, oh no, this was actually about this. But was this just a fun story that you made up? Or?
So, like a huge influence on me musically. I love Devo. I love Oingo Boingo, but I also really love the Pixies. Like that was like a huge band for me. That was like my band, the Pixies. I love the Pixies. And I love their kind of stream of conscious random that they did so well where they'd be singing something like, what are they singing? But it's so catchy, you know? So with this song, we had a pretty diplomatic, I guess, kind of a democracy amongst us where like, if someone came up with an idea, we would always try it, like no matter what. And that went for like show antics. It went for anything. Like if someone came up with an idea, let's just at least try it. And so I think for the first verse, the first line, I had a small friend who had a fat friend who had a big friend who gave birth to many friends. That was written by Catboy, Boyd Terry, our trumpet player, our lead trumpet player, and definitely the mariachi influence on the trumpets. Like he'd write lyrics sometimes and give me lyrics. He's like, what do you think about this? And I'd just be like, what? What are you talking about? And then I go, well, it's so crazy. Why not? You know? And then that first line, I had no idea. So, you know how songwriting is. Sometimes you have an idea lyrically or like something you want to sing about. And so then you write down what you want to sing about and then you figure out music around it. But then there's also the other side, which I'm sure you guys have done too, where you come up with a great riff or you come up with a good song without any words. And that's what Super Rad was. It didn't have any words. And we were trying to figure out, we could tell that just the way the song grooved and the way that the trumpets and the horn lines were really catchy. We kind of could tell that this was going to be potential to get pushed because it was at that time when they were pushing ska songs onto the radio. And we could tell like this could be a contender to be one of those songs. And, because the label was talking to us about that and all that. But Boyd came up with this line and that kind of set it off. So it was like, I got a small friend who had a fat friend who had a big friend who gave birth to many friends. And then from there, like I took over and then with our flashlights to the sky, we waited for them to land like they're aliens or something, and then the song kind of turned into this, we're all kind of mutants and we're all kind of aliens. I got a fat friend. I have a little friend. I have a brown friend. I have a green friend. Like, when you're with your boys and you're outcasts at school and you're just weirdos and you just feel that way. Even if you're not, you could be the most popular kid in school and you still feel you're like a weirdo. And so really I felt like that was coming from Boyd, who was kind of a weirdo, Catboy, and we're all weirdos, and so that kind of set the stage for the rest of the song. And then the flashlights to the sky. We waited for them to land, like there's some kind of outer space weirdos, or we're summoning our dudes with with our flashlights, like land here, guys, land here, And the imagination took over, and then they, meaning like our team, have Roman candles and bottle rockets for the Vandals. And that was a little shout out to the Vandals, because we've been
I thought so.
We've been friends with those guys for a while. But it also, on the inverse, it's like the bullies. It's like us versus the bullies. And the 80s was all about bully movies. Just like there's so many movies about bullies, and then the nerds taking over, the like outcasts get their comeuppance. I mean, that was such an 80s thing. And it felt right for the song to be like, okay, so they've got fireworks for these Vandals who bullied us and mess with our lockers, And so that's, again, it started off with just kind of a random stream of consciousness, like Catboy coming up with some weird line. And then that set the tone for like, here's the theme. This song's about the underdogs winning.
Yeah.
And we went that direction. And I don't know if it's super obvious that that's what the song is about, but it is kind of about, triumphing over your adversity, even if it seems like, in little ways, like.
Yeah. Well, the next part, I'm calling the pre-chorus, even though the chorus doesn't come after this. We get right into verse 2, but
right.
I'm calling it a pre-chorus, even though this is kind of the chorus. This happens so many times in the song. It happens 3 times, but it's a great setup for verse 2, and the snare goes double time here. The organ, Farfisa, is hitting on those snares along with along with the tambourine, just really moving that part along. The guitar is doing a classic ska guitar run, like a guitar lick throughout this part, and the horns are doing a few well-played stabs throughout, and there's unison vocals throughout this whole part.
We're on our way, here we go. We're gonna take over, set it off one last time. Here we come again.
The lyric is, we're on our way, here we go. We're gonna take over, set it off one last time. Here we come again. And there's this killer, like, spacey Jetsons echo on again that happens there.
Yeah.
And so where are we going with these lyrics?
So again, that's like one of those things, is building to your chorus and your pre-chorus, your music pop theory, you're setting up the runway for your chorus to take off. And really, it just, we're on our way. Here we go. We're going towards the chorus, and what's funny about this song is that we didn't really know what the song was about. Even the whole line, and we'll get to this super rad part, but yeah, we're on our way. Here we go. It's also like psyching yourself up that you're going to the Rumble, or you're going to go to the fight, or you're going to go to Fenders in Long Beach, which was like the Thunderdome in 1985 or whatever, like, here we go. You can't stop us. Set it off one last time. Let's just go for it. And even if it is the last time, is the meaning, like, let's just give it one more try, and
it's like it's
don't quit.
It's like the triumphant protagonist theme. Like we're out to save ourselves and save the world.
Yeah, and then we'll get to the middle part, but definitely it's ramping up to the chorus. But it's also it's an anthem for the nerds and the outcasts and the people that feel like they have
disenfranchised.
Yeah, the disenfranchised. But also, by doing unison too, we wanted it to feel like it was the team, and like we're gathering the troops, and even if it's like 3 guys, or if it's 30 guys, or 30 guys and girls, or whatever, it's like the team, it's our family, and here we go, and the tribe, we're gonna run into the fray.
Yeah, well, and then we're at 56 seconds, and we're into verse 2 now, and I love this verse.
We were strangers, and we were pilgrims, role models of the family man, pioneers and patriarchs, patriots and matriarchs, taking out the promised land. Our little army, we were commandos, guerrillas with decoder rings. We felt some opposition from some villains who were wishing they could be cadets and kings.
again, it's the same as the first verse in terms of the music going on behind it. But the lyrics are, we were strangers and we were pilgrims, role models of the family man, pioneers and patriarchs, patriots and matriarchs, staking out the promised land. Our little army, we were commandos, guerrillas with decoder rings. We felt some opposition from some villains who were wishing they could be cadets and kings. And now I pulled these lyrics offline. Is the gorillas here like the animal? That's how it's written, or is it supposed to be like guerrilla warfare?
It's supposed to be like guerrilla warfare, but
it is. Okay,
I kind of like that it's gorillas. Like,
with you guys, it could be gorillas like the animal
for sure. I think the notion is it's gorillas like fighting gorillas, but it's kind of, I think even in the lyric sheet we wrote it gorillas like the monkeys, like we wrote like GORILLAS because it's funnier that way. For sure.
I love the line pioneers and patriarchs, patriots and matriarchs. It's just the rhyme scheme there is great.
It's a little kind of nod to like my ancestry is, there's a lot of pioneers in my ancestry. So like my grandfather and my great grandfather, they came across the plains and hunted and fished and kind of helped, like we're part of the crew that helped settle the West. And I have relatives on my mom's side that were similar. And so it's kind of like one of those things to kind of acknowledge where you come from.
So you're saying we could have almost had you in a loincloth on stage?
Yeah, totally. Or at least some overalls with like a bib, like, yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, it's like looking back at how did we all get here and how did civilization arrive? Is we arrived as strangers and we were pilgrims trying to find the promised land. And whether that's like an island in the sea or that's like a beautiful city in the mountains, it kind of is a notion to like history of the nerds of the modern day, because like how did we all get here? Who are we? And we all came from somewhere, and where we came from in the beginning was still outcasts. It was still strangers. It was still, you know what I mean? Like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, and that's what the whole punk and ska scene was. We were all outcasts back then.
For sure.
So before it was mainstream, it's like, how many shows we played to 20 people? No one was there,
Totally. And it goes to that, and it goes like 100, 200 years before where, there's some dudes trying to find some buffaloes, and, maybe they're not in the right territory. They're not in the right neighborhood. They need to like go somewhere else. And so that's a little bit of a nod to that. Of like, here we are kind of outcasts and nerds, but guess what? We come from a long line of outcasts and nerds, and we're still, and those guys thrived, and those people made a civilization. Yeah. And you look at what happened with punk and ska, pop music, it like the punks thrived. They're the ones that survived. It's the outcasts and the people that are the pioneers that survive. It's not the people that are the followers. And that might have even been a subtle little jab at the other bands that were jumping on the bandwagon at the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Well, and it's amazing to think back to that time and what was happening, with that bandwagon jump, because everyone was getting signed, and it was like, for bands like yours that were there from the beginning, playing to nobody, it's like, wait a second, it kind of, there was bound to be some animosity in that regard.
Well, yeah, to be fair, we weren't around like so much longer. So for a band like Sublime and No Doubt, they were real, like, No Doubt was doing the third wave of ska kind of before anybody, and Sublime too. There's some other bands like Let's Go Bowling, and some of the bands that went into kind of like the lean times of ska that, they were there before us. So we couldn't really take too much credit, but we definitely had been doing it for a couple of years. And then we were already kind of like looking at all these people getting signed that we know they weren't a ska band, or we know they were just jumping in there. And it was a little like, hey man, that's not cool. And I still feel like that kind of ethos was still in the scene where, hey man, if you're not real, then what are you doing here? Like, go away. And the great thing about ska shows is like, you could be a total freak, or you could wear a suit, a Hawaiian shirt, you could be whatever you wanted. And you were real. Like, that's real. And you weren't part of the like bully rock or the, you weren't going to a show to get in a fight with somebody. And show off your tattoos. You were going there to have fun and be with your friends. And so when those type of bands started like converting into ska bands, that's kind of made us a little bit bummed. And, you know, even though we were jokers, we were a little territorial about it sometimes, you know.
Sure. Well, you know, I was kind of amazed the first 15 or 20 episodes I did of this podcast, and I'm no longer. I mean, I knew there was a story behind these lyrics. I didn't know what it was, but I was like, you know, these aren't just some wacky lyrics on paper. There's something here, and I think that's awesome. Pre-chorus 2 happens. Same as pre-chorus 1. We were on our way. Here we go. We're going to take over. Set it off one last time. Here we come again. And the echo is still there, but it's not as prominent because the next part of the downbeat hits so quickly, which is chorus 1 at the minute and 30 second mark.
Set it off one last time. Here we come again. All systems go. Soon the world will know the fury of attack. Feel the wrath of the super rad. A super rad. All systems go. Soon the world will know the fury of attack. Feel the wrath of the super rad. Super rad. Super rad. Super rad.
And the lyrics here are, all systems go, soon the world will know. And on that part, it breaks down into like this halftime reggae feel for those 2 lines. And there's gang vocals in unison there. And it also sounds like this part underneath it sounds like there's like a moog running behind it.
Yeah.
Is that what that is? Like that low bass tone? It almost sounds like a moog.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a moog. You know, it could have been a Korg, but we had a couple of like vintage synths in the studio when we were recording it. And Adam, our keyboard player, who went on after that as our keyboard player, was all about the moog. So I wouldn't doubt that it was.
Yeah, it's like this low baritone growl.
And it's kind of bubbling in the background. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But that's also that low end Farfisa was making a kind of funky noise too. And so it could be like a layered moog and the low end of the Farfisa that made this kind of scratchy, weird thing.
Those 2 frequencies playing off one another.
Yeah.
Well, then the band goes fast again out of that reggae feel for the fury of attack. Feel the wrath of the super rad.
Yeah.
The super rad. And then the second part here is, all systems go. Soon the world will know. Again, gang vocals in unison there. Halftime feel. Band picks back up for the fury of attack. Feel the wrath of the super rad. Super rad. Super rad. Super rad.
Super rad.
So now the title. What's this about here? Where'd the title come from?
So for reals, we recorded most of the record in at Paramount Studios in Hollywood, which Paramount seems like is that the movie studio? No, it's not. It's like a junky little studio right on Santa Monica Boulevard. It was like they recorded lots of stuff there. In fact, while we were recording The Fury of the Aquabats at Paramount, Criss Cross was recording their record too. They were in the hallways, like with their pants on backwards and stuff, and we were just tripping out. Like, look at these guys.
Well, yeah, because Criss Cross was like 91 or 92, so this is like 4 years. They were still wearing their pants backwards?
Yeah, it was like a follow-up. It was like the follow-up. It was like their comeback or whatever, but they were there like going crazy, and it was funny. And we ran into all kinds of weird people there. But we recorded the whole record, and Super Rad was one of the songs we knew was going to be single contention or contender, but there was a couple songs that we like ran out of time at Paramount, like, and obviously with Travis, all his stuff was done early, and then all the other stuff came on, but the lyrics and like the vocals were taking a long time because I wasn't done with all the lyrics, and so we had to move to a studio in the Valley to finish the lyrics, and the clock was ticking, and you know the label's like, come on, we're going to go over budget. You got to finish. I'm like, I know. And we had a couple of songs that we were trying to like finish. And I think we even put Martian Girl on the record, like last minute. Like we weren't going to put that on the record, but the label was like, well, this could be a single. And we were like, okay, well, sure. And anyway, long story short, I'm in the studio and trying to figure out Super Rad. And it was like painstakingly trying to like, this would be good, but what is it? What is this song? Like what could describe it? I think it was Adam, our keyboard player. I was like, what if I did something like that? And he leaned into the mic. He's like, yeah, that'd be super rad. And I was like, okay, that's it. Let's just call the song Super Rad. and then everyone started laughing. And they're like, no, come on. And I'm like, no, seriously, let's just do it. I think maybe the label was a little bummed because Super Rad isn't your like most like mainstream thought process, you know, like, hey, this term will invite everybody in, like, you know, like feeling all right, you know, like that's something that is in every song practically. I'm feeling all right. Like, can this just song be I'm feeling all right, the ska version? No, it's gonna be super rad. It's better than all right. It's super rad. And we were laughing because it was like, it's basically like you're crafting a song and you're getting it to this beautiful home to this edge of a cliff. And then you just push it off the cliff with super rad. You know what I mean? Like, it's just super rad. And so
you had the greatest chance in the world of getting on the radio, but we just doomed you.
Yeah, we just wrecked it. You know, but fortunately we did get some airplay with super rad, especially around LA, because, you know, being rad, it kind of people got what we were trying to say, I guess. But K-Rock in LA, they thought it was great and they loved it because it was, you know, it's like Valley talk anyway.
Well, no, I've talked about K-Rock. You know, I had Trevor from Face to Face on here. It's like when you see Face to Face in Southern California, or you see the Aquabats, when they play Disconnected, or you guys play Super Rad, it's just the place goes berserk. It was like you had a worldwide hit with those songs because, you know, K-Rock was the biggest thing ever. You know, back then, if you got played on that station, it legitimized your band.
Oh, it was huge, and even in the '80s, before I was even in a band at all. Like, K-Rock was the station that basically kind of brought alternative music into the States. I mean, it came through K-Rock is all the English bands and all the punk bands. And it was rad growing up, no pun intended. It was cool growing up in LA, being kind of like listening to K-Rock because all the good new music would come in and you could listen to Rodney on the Rock on the weekends. And he would play the most tweaked, weird stuff. And, you know, there was no internet. So how else are you going to discover this stuff without the radio? Other than going to the record store and like buying an album based on the album cover. Like, this looks good, you know, like.
Yeah, people don't realize now the struggle and or how you know important radio was then.
That was how
you found out about stuff.
I think I found out about you guys from K-Rock on like one of those nighttime shows, like Less Than Jake. They played it one night, and I was like, "That's pretty cool." And I went and got Pestcore like right afterwards. So yeah. Anyway, so Super Rad was just one of these like, it was just kind of a fluke and it was a joke, but that's kind of like, it's really sums up the Aquabats. It's like, hey, here's a weird idea. Let's do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, I got an idea. Let's wear rubber hats and rash guards and act like we're superheroes. Why not? You know, let's have bad guys attack us on stage. Why not? Like, let's just do it.
Yeah.
And so that's what Super Rad really, it just felt like a completion of not only description of who we're talking about in the song, but really like an anthem for the Aquabats and like kind of like people that come up with crazy ideas and just want to go for it. And like, who cares? Let's go for it. So Super Rad was, in essence, just means going for it, like without any regrets or, you know, just
a reservation.
Yeah, any reservations, like, or shame.
Yeah.
Like, let's own it. Like you were saying earlier, like, let's just be who we are and just own it. And, you know, if people think we're dumb or sell out or whatever, we're not, because we're staying true to being super rad. And that's just, and, you know, like, okay, also, you got to admit, Chris, like growing up in the 80s when all these terms like dude and rad and awesome came out, and people don't realize this, but at first they weren't part of the mainstream vernacular. It wasn't like everyone was saying stuff like awesome, you know, or that's totally rad. Like, people weren't saying that. There was kind of like a small group of people that would say gnarly, or like, you know, it was surfers and skaters and punkers kind of had their own terms. So we started off saying stuff like dude or super rad, kind of almost as a joke, like kind of making fun of that thing. Like, hey, dude, you know, you just kind of like, but then it becomes part of who you are, is like this. So super rad was something we said, not like sincerely, but almost like sarcastically. Yeah, that'd be super rad, like just as a joke. But then it ultimately embodied what we became. And that's just like, sarcasm personified. You know what I mean? Like,
No, I mean, that's some of the first times I ever heard those words when I went to Southern California back in the 90s. You hear, the skaters and the surfers have their own vernacular. It was pretty crazy. After chorus 1, we're at 1 minute and 51 seconds. There's a re-intro. But it's a breakdown. It's a breakdown part here. There's no guitar. It's just the bass and drums and horns and like this weird like Farfisa noise, organ noise going on behind it, almost like that whole spacey motif that you guys are going for. At the 1 minute and 59 second part, there's a spoken word here that you say, and I don't know what the last thing you say. I know it's step off, and then in my notes I wrote moo me, like a cow, moo me. What do you say?
It's homie, step off, homie.
Homie.
Yeah.
It sounded like step off, moo me.
No, this was like, early 90s, so like Homie the Clown and like homie, people were saying homie all the time, and it was like one of those things, like
step off, homie.
We'd say it. You say it as a joke, like, for me to say homie, it's like, that's not really where I'm from, but it's kind of funny to say it.
Do you remember if that was off the cuff on the mic and was left in, or was that something you did?
I think it was off the cuff. I was doing, I always would add stupid stuff in and like say things at parts, and Jim edited a lot of stuff out, and then we would listen to stuff and I go, just cut that out. But when I said step off, homie, I think we all were like, yeah, that's kind of funny. Just leave it in. So we just left it in. There's definitely stuff I wish we would have cut out. That's always stuff like that, like those little ad libs. I'm like, oh man, that's so dorky. Like,
yeah, it's that musical hindsight we always have years after the fact. But as I said earlier, it was meant. Everything I ever recorded, and I'm sure you're going to attest, it was meant to be. At the 2 minutes 2 minutes and 3 second mark, we're into the bridge, and it's just bass and drums continued here. It's like the breakdowns continues to go.
And if we die before the battle's through, tell your mom, tell your dad we were super rad.
And the lyric is, and if we die before the battle's through, tell your mom, tell your dad, we were super rad. And on the second line, before the battle's through, everything kind of slows down here. It's almost like the power went out when like a record player's on, like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Who came up with that? Was that something Jim wanted to do?
That was probably a suggestion from Jim, or, in the mix. But I think also Chad Crash played like he bent a note on the bass, and then we added like Moog and different stuff on top of it to kind of mimic the bass, like boom. So it's like, I don't know, it was just kind of some flair that we thought would sound cool right there.
It kind of just adds to what you guys have going on. It kind of makes sense, especially with this track. At the end of this bridge, it's really interesting. Nothing fancy happens here. You just say, we were super rad. And then there's these 2 subtle hits on the hi-hat. And then you're into the pre-chorus number 3.
Rad. We're on our way. Here we go. We're gonna take over. Set it off one last time. Here we come again.
Which again, this is almost like a chorus. It happens 3 times. The regular chorus, you're really only getting here twice.
All systems go. Soon the world will know. The fury of attack. Feel the wrath of the super rat. A super rat. All systems go. Soon the world will know. The fury of attack. Feel the wrath of the super rat. Super rat. Super rat.
And on the second time you say, soon the world will know.
No, is that the one that drops down?
Yeah. And do you remember you singing it like that prior to recording? Or again, was this something that Jim was pushing you vocally in the studio? Or I love little change ups like that. And again, this song was not, cut and pasted in Pro Tools. This was all done analog to tape. So was that something you remember doing consciously?
Not to take any credit away from Jim, but I think it was something we had practiced a little bit, just to give it some flair. I kind of swing my notes when I sing anyway. I'm not like the world's greatest singer, so I'm always kind of swinging into notes, and it just felt kind of fun to swing out of that part, just to give it a little bit of a change up, make it a little more interesting. because I've got ADD, and so like
Yeah.
when stuff gets too repetitive, we are all kind of like that a little bit. You want to like add some flair, make it something more special, and so like. But originally we'd written it with this part. Go meow.
Yeah.
Soon though, we'll know. It feels like we practiced it that way because I know Chad was doing a bend on the bass right there.
Yeah, no, it's a cool welcome change up at the end there. I like it. At the end here, after chorus 2, it's what I'm calling an outro. I had post chorus initially written, but I think this is more of an outro. And this is kind of like a tie up at the end of the song. It's all systems go as we step into the octagon. Feel the wrath of mission code name applesauce, 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 and it ends with super rad. Now there's double time on the snare the whole time here. There's tambourine on all the snare hits, and there's backing vocals going here. Rad, 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 rad. That's happening the whole time there. So and that's something new that's been introduced into the song. Do you remember how that part happened? Was that how you were rehearsing it, the backup vocals with the rad?
I think we just added that in the studio. Like that was one of those things like, why don't we add some backup rads, just to like overkill it? And you're talking about owning it, like let's just go all in. Like let's throw more rads at the end, because we knew that also was like a term that wasn't like a universal term. So again, you're talking about like taking a song that could at the time be a mainstream hit and just totally pounding rads into it and making it like, this is what it is. It's not a love song, it's not a breakup song. This is a song about goofy rad dudes and we don't care. Like this is who we are.
Yeah.
Leave it.
And what's with the lyric applesauce repeated 3 times?
So I have an adopted brother and sister they're from Romania, and they both have like really extreme cerebral palsy. And my younger brother, Andrew, he loved the Aquabats, and he came and saw us play, and he's in a wheelchair, and he's in his 30s now, which is crazy to think about. But the way he would say Aquabats is he'd say applesauce. He'd say applesauce, applesauce. And so we just thought that would be rad to give him a shout out in the song. And so then whenever he would hear the end of the song, he would laugh because he knew that he kind of made that,
Oh man, that is awesome.
He's partially blind and he can't see, but he loves music, and he like really lights up when he hears songs he likes. And Super Rad is like one of his favorite songs because when he hears applesauce, he just starts laughing like, hey, that's me, because he knows that it's Aquabats, but he says it applesauce just because that's how he can say it. Right. So so we just gave him a little shout out in there. And then also that kind of speaks to the like underdog of it all. It's like people with disabilities and injuries and people that you don't expect to win. Like this is for them, this is for the applesauce.
Yeah,
right?
Man, that tie up right there, made the episode for me. That's a great story, and give your brother a high five for me, please.
I will. He's the best.
We end on super rad here. It's gang vocals saying super rad, just this triumphant ending, and the last thing you hear is a spacey type of synth kind of fading out and fades away, and the song ends. And it's again, I was amazed at the beginning of doing this show, and I'm no longer amazed that there's stories. Sometimes even the most ridiculous lyrics, you get these great stories behind it. So I just want to thank you so much for sitting in with us today.
Dude, thank you for having me. I was really honored to be a part of this, and it's great to talk about the story. And as you know, as a songwriter yourself, like every song has its own story, whether it be weird or insignificant. They all have their own story and history, and it's cool that we got to do this and still get to do it. So I'm just grateful, and thank you so much, man.
Absolutely. Is there anything I'd like to leave the listeners right now with what's going on with you, TV shows, the Aquabats? Spill it.
So we did a Kickstarter a couple of years ago and did some new episodes of the Super Show, and that were all crowdfunded. And we just aired one of the last ones a couple weeks ago, but you can see those on our YouTube channel. And of course, we're on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. But we've got some stuff coming up, and couple shows, and no tour yet, but again, we're just we're the Aquabats, so super rad.
I think that's the perfect way to end it. What else is there to say?
Yeah, super rad, man.
Hey, everybody, don't touch that dial. There's plenty more Krista Makes a Podcast after a few words from our sponsors.
This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
Max Bankman, I'm the new doctor.
Welcome aboard the Odyssey.
ABC Thursdays.
This ship is heaven. We're tending to our passengers' dreams. I'm in.
From 911 executive producer Ryan Murphy comes a splashy new drama on a luxury cruise ship with Joshua Jackson and Don Johnson.
It's your job to keep everyone alive.
She's in VFib. 1, 2, 3. Clear.
I have a pulse.
You're going to be okay.
Dr. Odyssey. Thursdays, 9/8 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Blinds.com is kicking off the savings early with Black Friday mega deals all month long. A Blinds.com design expert can help you make the perfect selection on your schedule. We can even handle everything from measure to your whole home install for just one low cost. With over 25 million windows covered, Blinds.com is the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings. Get up to 45% off site-wide, plus premium doorbusters and a free professional measure. Now at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Gift the remarkable with Marc Jacobs fragrances this holiday season. From the iconic Daisy and Perfect to the all-new Daisy Wild, Marc Jacobs perfume gift sets include everything she needs to feel special. From her favorite fragrance, plus the matching travel spray, holiday gifts don't get much more perfect than this. So if you're looking for a gift inspiration these holidays, gift the remarkable with Marc Jacobs.
Hey, Krista Makes a Podcast producer Chris Fafalius here. If you enjoy this podcast and you're looking for help with any aspect of your podcast, check out WeKnowPodcasting.com. Don't hesitate to hit us up. We're friendly people with a real passion for pods.
As we near the end of the show, here's a band you might not know.
Welcome to this week's Band You Might Not Know. If you'd like your band to be considered for Krista Makes a Podcast, all you have to do is submit your song via MP3 only and your bio to bandyoumightnotknow@gmail.com. Today's featured artist is Last Edition. I wanted to feature this band because I really like this song. It's a ska song, and I figured it'd be a great fit here on the Aquabats episode. But the email they sent just included an MP3 of their song. There's no information on the band here at all. I don't know where they're from. I don't know who's in the band. I don't know where you can find their stuff online. So please, if you're going to submit your band to Band You Might Not Know, please give me a little info so I can let people know where to find you. And without any further ado, here's the Last Edition with a snippet of their song, Half Drunk at Halftime.
The Wrap with Chris and Chris.
That episode was really great. I really think that Christian has some of those most interesting man in the world type of qualities. Like, you know, he's a child actor turned guy in a crazy band turned television producer. Just very interesting, seems to know lots of people, and on top of that, seems like a really sweet guy.
Yeah, like I said from the top, I was a little starstruck. I watched him as a kid on TV, and I just was like, there's no way he was that actor. And I went, and there he was, 40 years back in time, that round little face kid, there he is. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the same guy. It was great.
I was impressed he was in Gleaming the Cube.
Yeah. Wasn't that with Christian Slater?
Yeah, it's amazing skateboarding movie from the 80s, and I can't wait to find him in the movie now.
And it's funny now that I want to go back and find the episode. I watched Married with Children religiously, and Roseanne. I don't recall ever seeing him in Roseanne, but I am pretty certain now that I know what role he played in Married with Children. That's just it just blows my mind. And like I said, the fact that he went on to do the Aquabats, he was in TV. There's a whole element of show business outside of the band with doing their TV shows. Of course, him going on to do Yo Gabba Gabba. The whole thing makes sense now. It all adds up.
When Christian was summarizing the song, he used this quote, and I actually wrote it down. He said, "It's about people who come up with crazy ideas and just want to go for it," meaning it was kind of like a theme for the whole Aquabats thing. But I kind of felt like that was a good summary for Christian himself, who had this idea, wanted to make TV shows and make this crazy band, and just went for it, and one way or another made it happen. It's pretty inspiring.
It truly is. And he wasn't just focused. I think initially it was just the band, but look at all the doors that this band opened for him. And he has such a great attitude about the whole thing. And I meant everything I said. There was a glut of really bad, cheesy ska bands coming out in the late 90s and early 2000s. It was just one after the other. There was no substance. The lyrics were just absolutely terrible. But they've always owned who they were. They were these superheroes. It was kind of hard to believe the whole thing. You knew they were making fun of themselves. They weren't taking it too serious. It was fun, and it's unapologetic. They don't have to apologize for being who they were, or the lyrics being a little corny here or there. That's what the band's about.
You said it a lot of times in the episode, but they own it. They own that persona, and you could see okay, You use the word cheesy, that it could come off that guys dressed like superheroes and singing a song like Super Rad might come off as cheesy, but the way they own it, to me, makes it way less cheesy and more along the lines of bands like they might be Giants or Oingo Boingo or Devo or Mr. Bungle, where to me, something like this is way less cheesy than some band trying to be super serious and dark. That comes off way more cheesy to me than someone having this persona and owning it.
Absolutely. And it'd be one thing, too, if these guys were all, now in their mid-40s, starving themselves and working out with trainers to try to look good in the suit. I mean, they go out, they got their dad guts hanging out. The whole thing is just, they're truly owning it at this point. I've talked to Christian about this. We've been on tour with them before. And I've made jokes. I have said, have you ever asked a lady out after the show and went out in uniform? And he looked at me and goes, look at us. No, they know they're in on the joke, and they have fun with it. And I also meant what I said, that they, they're able to play to any audience. There's something that I never really cared about that as a younger band. I mean, I always wanted our shows to be all ages, but they can truly play to 2-year-olds to 80-year-olds. It doesn't matter.
I wrote that in my notes too when I was listening to this, man. There's something really cool about keeping your humor PG. It's more of a challenge. Like any of us could, go out there and cuss a lot or whatever, but it's things that are funny, but they're also PG. If you look at Homestar Runner or Adventure Time, or even most of Mitch Hedberg's comedy, for the most part. But when someone says a joke like, my friend asked me if I wanted a frozen banana, and I said no, but I want a regular banana later. So yeah, that kind of stuff is so much funnier to me than going out there and just cussing a lot. Not that I don't do that sometimes, but I'm just saying that it's impressive if you can make it friendly for any age or whatever and still be funny, and the Aquabats do that.
Yeah, no, and something I didn't mention in the episode, which is amazing, we didn't play our first show, Less Than Jake, with the Aquabats till probably within the last 5 years. We were in Europe and we did,
Wow.
we did 2 or 3 shows. And I remember sitting backstage with Christian saying, how the heck have we not played together? I mean, I think we did some Warped Tours, but he's like, I don't know. So they're definitely a band that I like to go out with sometime on the road. They're so much fun. They're doing it for the right reasons. They're humble. There's no egos. I mean, I don't know how you could have an ego dressed up at their age, getting on stage and completely being who they are and being fine with it. So they are I don't know, they're refreshing because they're doing it for the right reasons. I respect it.
That was, in my research of them, that was one of the things I saw about when they started their band, was that they were trying to be the antithesis of these people that were trying to be real cool and everything. That was their thing, and that's an awesome thing.
I think that's why I gravitate towards their whole train of thought. That was the same thing I was doing in the mid-'90s. For those that saw Less Than Jake back then, I was dressing up as a baseball player one night, a trucker the next night, because I didn't want to fit into that stereotype, typical, we have to look this way and be punk. I would take the stage in winger shirts and people be like, what are you doing? Like that band is like not cool. Why are you wearing that here? And I'm like, well, because you're wearing a Sex Pistols shirt, you're wearing a Ramones shirt, and you probably can't even name a song from those bands. So I get the Aquabats, what they were doing in that aspect.
And a few things about the song. First thing that I wanted to note is the word rad isn't really part of my personal vocabulary. I don't know if you say rad. I don't really say rad, but hell yeah, do I say awesome? Do I say dude, and I say hell yeah, man, what you call me out on. These things are part of my everyday vernacular. I don't say them ironically. They are just part of the way I talk. I say awesome way too much. And I never really think about the fact that really did as far as I know, the everyday use of that comes from like that skateboard culture,
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, I remember, gnarly was like something that Sean Penn, would say at Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and you'd make fun of it. And our A&R guy, Craig Aronson, we were getting courted by him for Capitol Records, and Craig said, he heard one of our songs, like, that song's gnarly. I'm like, I looked at him like, did you just say gnarly? He's like, well, yeah. What do you mean? And he wasn't being ironic or being weird about it. I'm like, gnarly, and then I'd get going out to California. I had never been to California prior to the band, and getting out there and hearing people, this was part of their everyday speech. It was hilarious to us being from Florida, but hell, we said things that were lame too, so who knows.
Dude, and as far as some sounds in the song, dude, I had never heard of is it a Farfisa?
Yeah, Farfisa, yeah.
Yeah, and then I had to look up what it was while you guys are talking about it. I'm like, it's a name commonly associated with a series of compact electronic organs manufactured in Italy in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
What do you know?
Yeah.
Learn something new.
Farfisas were really popular in a lot of the early 60s. The Doors used a Farfisa. And then, of course, the Moog, that I believe that was a Moog, and so did Christian, that was running behind those choruses. Just a lot going on musically here. A lot of cool parts and sounds, and I totally back it.
Hell yeah.
And speaking of super rad, Chris, I want to talk about your super rad enamel pin company.
Yeah. Hey, I have an Etsy shop at iloveenamelpins.com. If that sounds like something that you're into, if you like inexpensive gifts for the holidays for your friends, or you like to treat yourself to something fun and inexpensive, you can check out iloveenamelpins.com. And if you use the discount code Chris DeMakes on checkout, you'll get 30% off.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's only the first of the month here in November, but it's getting very close to the December holidays. So make sure you get that order in. And speaking of orders, Chris, I'm still doing custom songs and jingles for your business. Anybody out there would like one, get your order in as soon as you can. You can email me at chrisdemakes@gmail.com, and that way I can get it to you by the end of December for the holidays.
Yeah, we're cutting it really close now as far as custom songs go. Chris, I know we were talking about it. If people want one for the holidays, probably shouldn't mess around. This should probably be the week that you get your order in, because you do need some time to turn them around, and we're getting down to the nitty-gritty.
Absolutely. And yeah, if you haven't already, please join our Facebook group, the Chris DeMakes a Podcast Facebook group. It's tons of fun. We have almost 4,000 active members in the group. It is awesome. And give me a follow if you can on Instagram at LessThanChrisD. And I want to thank Christian Jacobs from the Aquabats for sitting in with us this week. He was an awesome guest. We'll see you next week. What makes a song a smash on the charts? Is it talent? Luck? Timing? Well, as chart analyst and pop critic Chris Molanphy would say, it's all that and more. Chris hosts Hit Parade, a podcast from Slate, where he tells tales from more than a half century of pop chart history. Through storytelling, trivia, and song snippets, he dissects how the artists you love or hate dominated the airwaves and shaped your memories forever. He's explained why Steely Dan is yacht rock and Jimmy Buffett isn't, why girl groups dominated the early 60s and boy bands the late 90s, how the members of disco band Chic wrote a bass line that launched hip-hop, how Taylor Swift pivoted from country to pop, how Sam Cooke invented soul and James Brown invented funk, and what exactly a one-hit wonder is, and whether the band a-ha is a one-hit wonder. I think you'd really like it. So for Tales of the Hits from Coast to Coast, make sure to follow Hit Parade wherever you get your podcasts.
What's up, everybody? I am Finn McKenty, host of the Punk Rock NBA podcast, part of the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. My podcast is all about doing what you love for a living, and every week I sit down and talk to people who have done exactly that. For example, musicians like Tommy from Between the Buried and Me, Matt from Periphery, Lil Lotus and Shinigami, among many others, photographers, artists, designers, YouTubers like Glenn Fricker and Sarah Dici, and I unpack exactly how they got to where they are today with the goal of helping you do the same. So if that sounds cool, you can listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com, and I'll see you there.